Hey everybody, I'm your guide, and this is the 16th entry in a series of more than 150 entries where we'll look at the fascinating and often frightening monsters inscribed in our trusty monster manual. Today, we're looking at the Carrion crawler, so let's dive right in. Now, I'm sure you can tell a lot about this creature already, simply based off of the name. Carrion crawlers are burrowing aberrations that scavenge the dead and occasionally the living in the right circumstances. Visually, they're similar to a giant fanged centipede. These guys are generally a pale yellow or green, growing up to 9 or 10 feet when fully grown. I suppose the color variations could be these creatures adapting to their surroundings. This camouflage would certainly assist them in ambushing any potential prey. They possess 8 long tentacles that protrude from the sides of their armored head, which allow them to paralyze their prey. And I'll go a little deeper on that topic in a little bit, as that's probably their most iconic trait. On top of that, their underside contains many legs, each tipped with spikes that allow it to crawl vertically along surfaces to get the drop on any unsuspecting prey. They also have 2 long eye stalks with which they can perceive their surroundings, even in the darkest sections of the Underdark. Not to mention their incredibly keen sense of smell, which allows them to sense carrion from miles away. Yeah, miles. Beyond that, their backs are covered in these tiny hair-like follicles, which allow it to sense vibrations in the air around them, basically allowing them to hear subtle pressure changes, letting them hunt more effectively. As a side note, the females of the species have been seen to be quite a bit larger than the males, even having a higher amount of the paralyzing tentacles. The leading theory as to why this might be, at least as far as I've read, is because the moment their children were born, they would have to fend off attacks from them. I'm assuming that's because the carrion crawler's all-consuming purpose is, well, consuming. And the instant the younglings are sentient, their hunger tells them to assault the nearest potential food source, which would be, of course, their birth mother, as grisly as it sounds. So that covers the main points of interest regarding their biology or physiology. Now let's touch on some behavioral aspects. This will likely be a pretty short section. We are assessing the behavior of what amounts to a massive centipede after all. The main thing I want to stress is, well, a few things actually. First, the carrion crawlers are not intelligent, not in the slightest. There is no higher order of thinking going on inside their brains, or what can be considered a brain, I suppose. Carrion crawlers are one thing and one thing only: hungry. Now, you could make a fair argument that since they do actively try to ambush their prey, there must be some consideration on their part. I think there is some merit to that, and a few of my colleagues might even take that position. Personally, though, it seems to me that all of that is a result of the carrion crawler simply following their natural instincts. Instincts that are a part of their process from the minute they're able to move about on their own. They are instinctively drawn to any and all dead meat, sometimes even detecting it from miles away if you can believe it. Though they do prefer to stay underground, I've seen some instances where a sufficient amount of death above ground will draw them from miles around to feast on the remains. Think, for example, a battlefield in the aftermath of a battle. Moreover, they have basically zero interest in communication or any social interaction with other species, no matter who or what they are. They're more likely to try and paralyze you, then consume you, the instant you get close to their tentacles than anything else. And yes, this does include their own kind. That reminds me. When a pregnant carrion crawler finds a sufficient corpse to lay her larvae in, usually around 60 in total, the moment the babies are able to move around, they're known to consume their weaker siblings on top of attacking their birth mother. But honestly, guys, that's about the extent of their day-to-day behavior. They're not very complex creatures after all. So let's close this out by looking at some of the more combat-oriented aspects. Carrion crawlers, as we've established, are scavengers. We know they primarily like to feed on the dead of any species, but what happens if there are no corpses in the area? Well, as you might have guessed, they're certainly not above attacking living creatures so long as there are no better options. Carrion crawlers have been known to sit in the tunnels and caves underground and use their keen senses to inform them of any potential prey in the area. They can use the hairs on their back to sense the vibrations in the air. They've also got quite good hearing and sight, being able to see in the dark to a certain extent. They'll usually wait around a corner or hang upside down from the ceiling of a tunnel and drop down onto their prey, which puts them right where they want to be ideally. Once on top of their prey, they rely on two modes of attack. The first is a simple bite from their mandibles, which is honestly not too bad considering the second option. The second option would be the 8 long tentacles around the outside of their face. These things, upon touching their prey, are known to completely and utterly paralyze the opposing creature. And when I say paralyze, I mean any form of movement, including speech, is out of the question. But you'll be happy to know the prey can still feel everything that's about to happen to them. Yeah, pretty gruesome, I know. And for another side note, this paralytic agent that the carrion crawlers create is also known to be harvested by some brave adventurers and used as a coating for arrows. The stuff is called carrion crawler brain juice. Not exactly the most imaginative name, but it's extracted from scraping it from the carapace or even pulling it directly from the creature's brain itself. And you'll generally find this being used by people like the drow or certain orcs. Anyhow, once the prey is subdued, the carrion crawler then uses its shorter forearms to carry the creature to a secluded spot where the paralytic will eventually work its magic, usually killing the creature. At which point, the carrion crawler will return and, well, I think you know what comes next. And truthfully, that about covers it. Like I said, they aren't exactly complex creatures, but they are common enough and dangerous enough that it's smart for adventurers to know what they're up against, especially if they ever venture into the darker areas of our world. So be safe out there. I'd hate to find out any one of you got too acquainted with one of these mindless scavengers. That's it for today, folks. A relatively short entry. Thanks again for making it to the end here. I appreciate everyone who engages with these lectures. Also, to do the YouTuber things, hit that like and subscribe button if you feel like I deserve it, and I'll see you for the next one. So be safe, take care, and happy trails.